I got a light phone 2. Mike, what do you want to know?
How long have you had it for at this point?
About a week.
Okay.
Little less than a week.
Okay. Can you show it to us a little closer here?
Yeah.
I wanna see this thing.
My camera's not going to focus, but
Oh
this is
wow.
the light phone. It's very small. Here,
Yeah, it's
this
a lot
is
smaller than I
this is my
expected.
iPhone in comparison. And this
Right.
is like the mini iPhone. I mean, this is the tiny one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very small.
Okay. I think I have a lot of questions, but
Fire
first
away.
off, just describe what it is, and because it there's not
Okay.
much there, right?
Basically, it is a tiny baby Kindle phone. And it has I can read off what is on the phone.
Okay.
Phone alarm, or phone text alarm, calculator, calendar, directions or GPS, music, notes, both voice and text, podcasts, and settings.
You get
And that's it.
podcasts. Interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, you can download pretty much any podcast that you want.
And are you able to install anything else?
Nope. That's it.
So that's it. Okay. So
Yeah.
this is a phone that's designed to be very close to the old, Motorola Razr or the brick
Yep.
phone
This
that
is
could do not much besides phone and text.
Yes, the cool kids call it a dumb phone because
Right.
it's not
Okay.
smart. Uh, yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is simple. I have wanted a dumb phone for years now. Like I've been very curious about them. They started becoming a trend a few years ago. Although I've never seen anyone using one. I've just
Right.
seen it online. And so I started looking at them, and they all look like early 2000s phones with, their flip phone razor style or whatever. They have these clunky buttons on them, and they just
Mhm.
look like, I don't want to torture myself. I just want to relieve myself from some of the bad things of the smartphone.
Right.
But then this thing came out, or I saw it maybe a year ago or something, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But it only had like 3 things on it. It didn't have a whole lot on it, so I didn't get it. But then Light Phone 2, which is what this is, came out, I guess, and it's got a pretty good amount of stuff on there. It's enough to where I don't think people will be crawling back to their smartphone right away. It's it's got your basic utilities on there, so it's a little bit more realistic as a replacement, not just a "hey guys, look what
Right.
I got" type of phone.
Right.
It's yeah,
Okay. So you're a week into this, right?
correct.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I am very skeptical because the number of people I know that don't actively use a smartphone is currently one, and that is you. And you've only been doing it for a week. So it's going to take a little bit of selling for me to really believe it. In fact, I know quite a few people, or have met quite a few people who will brag about how long they went without using a smartphone. Like, oh yeah, I didn't have a phone for years. But it was always past tense. They always have one now. Like, oh yeah, I ended up getting one a couple
Okay,
years ago, right? So there's
yeah, yeah.
just, and well, we can kind of drill into this, but my feeling is that as pure and wholesome and enlightening as that experience probably is, I think what typically happens is that something comes along where you just kind of really need the features of a smartphone, and you have to sort of make that jump. You got to switch your SIM card, you whatever, somehow have to wind up using the smartphone, and then you just kind of never go back. Or maybe you make it through that process a couple times, but eventually you've just landed on the smartphone. How do you
Any more skepticisms? Get it all out now. I want to hear all the negativity.
Well, I'm not trying to be negative.
Well,
I'm
okay, so I ordered the smartphone and it was supposed to come in on a Saturday or something, but it didn't.
you
And it
said
was
smartphone, but you meant light phone. This is not
okay. I already
it's a
switched.
dumb
I
phone.
guess.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. 5 minutes. Okay. I ordered the light phone and it was supposed to come in on like a Saturday or something, but it didn't. It was 4 or 5 days late. Everyone joked it's because the GPS on the phone is so bad that it couldn't find its way to me, but
That's
whatever.
fine.
It was about 4 or 5 days late, and at first I was annoyed. I was angry that I didn't get my cool new phone. I really wanted it, but I didn't have it. So I'm still using my smartphone when this is not coming in. But I was so excited and so mentally ready to make this jump. So I decided to take my smartphone and try to get it as close as I possibly could to a light phone. So I deleted everything. I deleted email. I deleted Discord, Instagram, YouTube, every single thing that you refresh and delivers you something new. I
Yeah.
got rid of it, which, okay, who cares? Everyone's done that. I've done that before, but they always come flooding back, right? But because I was waiting for this light phone, I was very strict about the phone. So for the most part, I turned my smartphone into an iPod with phone attached to it.
Right.
That's it. That was all it was. And so for those 4 days, I'm dealing with some of those withdrawals of, oh, I really want to check Discord, or I really want to check my email, or whatever. Oh, I deleted Teams as well, which is what we use for work. That's a big deal. I can't check for work constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through these 4 days dealing with some of the, I don't know, the withdrawals of wanting to check this stuff. Whatever. Who cares about that? Initially, I was thinking, okay, when I get my light phone, I'm going to have to lock my smartphone in a box or something and transfer everything that I do on my phone to my computer. Like, all the basic stuff, work stuff, whatever, is already on my computer, but all the things like banking and insurance and all the little things you have apps for, right? I'm thinking, oh God, I'm going to have to go through my whole phone, transfer it all over to my computer. It's going to take forever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'm going to do that. It did not spark joy. I was not looking forward to that part of it. But then through these 4 days, it hit me. Oh, I've already turned my phone into something that sparks joy, which I thought wasn't really possible. So I deleted all this stuff, and then my phone's just this simple thing that only has good things on it. And the reason why I couldn't just stick with that is because I know eventually I would slip back into downloading all of those things, one thing at a time. Eventually I'd be right back to where I was, which is what has always happened in the past. So I didn't cancel my light phone order. I let it arrive. It arrives, I grab the light phone, and I begin to use it. The first hour or so of me using it, I hated it because it's stupid. The button is on top, like the on button is on top, and then there's this menu button on the side. There's, that's crazy. Whereas my iPhone is just the button on the side. It just took some getting used to. The menu is way different than your smartphone. They call it a smartphone for a reason, because they've put a lot of thought into that, and it is very smart and knows exactly what you want, and it knows how to get you what you want immediately. Right. The light phone is just like this laid back, chill dude that's just, hey man, I don't know where that's at. Why don't you just calm down? We'll find it later together. That's the general vibe from this phone. So the first hour or two of dealing with it, I was just kind of angry at it and kind of hated it. Let's see, where do we go next? Okay, so my thinking changed from I'm going to totally ditch the smartphone to, wait a minute, let me totally redo my iPhone, then keep it in a safe place in my room, and then when I need it, I will just use it. That's it.
Right.
That's all. But for my phone and for general everyday use, my light phone will be the thing. So that was my thinking. Yeah. Once I got it, is okay, I don't actually have to go through all that trouble of transferring things to the computer or whatever. I'll just keep the iPhone. It's got an amazing camera on it. It's got all kinds of great things that I love to use, and I've just edited it down to get rid of all of the bad stuff. So I leave that, at home or whatever, and I just take my light phone. And by the time I got it, I'm totally fine. Like, it's totally fine. I'm not worried about checking work stuff because if I really need to check it, I'll check it in the morning before I drive to work on my computer, and I'll check it when I get to work on my computer. There's no real reason for me to check anything when I'm driving or when I'm out to lunch or whatever. So really, it was way easier than I thought it would be. So that was my general impression, like right away. Do you have any questions?
So you're saying that your very initial reaction was that it was clunky and it didn't feel good and you hated it, but then within a day or so you got
Within
used
like
to it?
2 hours. Within an hour or two, I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool because you get used to the buttons and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you're saying that a lot of the stuff you thought you needed to do turned out you really didn't need to do it. Like, oh, I don't really need to be checking work messages on the drive to work. That's funny because I relate to that very much. And if you really reflect and kind of realize that, oh, this actually isn't a need, I just have a compulsion to do it, that feels a lot like addictive behavior, right?
Yep.
These sort of irrational urges to use something when you objectively don't need to.
Absolutely. And let me just say up front that I'm not trying to convince anyone to get a light phone or not get a light phone. I don't care what you do. That's the preface to this story. So I take it to work, right?
We totally care what people do. We care about everyone.
I want
and
people. Yes, I want people to live their best life. Okay.
Yes.
But okay, it'll make sense once I tell this story. But this is in the spirit of all the reasons not to get a dumb phone or light phone or whatever, right? Because you can immediately think of tons. So I go to work and I got my fun little new gadget. Mm-hmm. I don't know anyone else who has this. Okay, maybe it's popular in other areas. I don't know anyone.
I've never witnessed one in real life either.
Yeah. So I was under the impression that it wasn't that weird. I was wrong. I was very wrong. So I showed it, a couple of my close friends, whatever. And some of them knew I was getting it and they wanted to see it and made fun of me or whatever, but it was fine. And then I showed a couple other people and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I'm kind of jealous. That would be fun to just do that, but I can't do it because of this, and this, whatever. I'm like, I'm not trying to convince you otherwise. So that's fine. Like, but they seemed mildly, sort of, oh, that's a cool thing. Never thought about that, whatever. But then I walk over to the other side of the office and I start talking to one of my other friends. I pull it out and I just show it to him. He didn't know I was getting this or what it was or anything. I'm like, hey, look at this. It's my new phone. And he's like, what the hell is that thing? That's the dumbest, stupidest shit I've ever seen. That's so dumb. That's so stupid. Why in the world would you do that? And then everyone around him and everyone over there started, crowding around me and like, God, that's so stupid. How much money did you spend on that piece of shit? Oh my God, that's so stupid. And they just went on and on about how I made this massive, like major life mistake, that I am doing something just ridiculously stupid and heinous. They were legitimately pissed off at me for owning this thing. Why would I spend $300 on a dumb phone or a phone that is not as smart as theirs? And they just went off on me. And it totally took me by surprise. I was not expecting that type of reaction. I didn't think people could get so upset about something like that. It was actually pretty shocking. I felt a little afraid in those moments. And I'm thinking, it's a phone. Like, who cares? But these people were legitimately pissed off. So they keep asking me, it's not like they're about to fight me, but they're like kind of angry at this idea. Like I'm trying to push this on them or something. Again, I don't care what you do. But I'm kind of desperately trying to describe why I'm doing this, in between their remarks that keep coming at me. And I'm kind of fumbling because I'm like, well, I feel like, I spend too much time on my phone. And then they say, well, why don't you just use it less? idiot. So I'm like, well, I've tried that, but I always seem to come back to the phone. They're like, well, just delete stuff that you don't use. Like, well, I did that too. And they're like, well, why don't you just like, whatever. They had a ton of different reasons as to why I should not get something like this. They're like, what if you need to take a picture? I'm like, I guess I won't take a picture. Or if I know I'm going somewhere that I want to take a picture, I'll just bring my smartphone. Like, I can swap out these SIM cards within 30 seconds. It's really easy, guys. But I'm trying to describe, why I want this, and it was not easy to describe, and no one seemed to relate in any way, shape, or form, which made me feel like kind of a weirdo. I talk to you, you think about this stuff. A lot of the people that listen to us think about this kind of thing where you're sort of trying to escape this phone, this black hole that sucks up your whole life. But you go out into the real world and people have never even considered that type of thinking. And I guess over the last year or two, I've just sort of developed this idea that other people feel like me. They do not. Most people, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of the people I talk to have never considered giving up a phone or viewed it as a bad thing. So one of the things I said was, as I'm fumbling trying to describe, why I got this phone, I'm like, take out your phone, check your screen time. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. So he checks the screen time and it's like 4 hours. So everybody else starts checking their screen time. Same thing, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. And I'm like, there you go. That's the reason why I want one of these, because I want that time back. And I don't know. They just kept laughing at me. We can move past that. But it was just sort of shocking to me, that sort of reaction. And I think what I sort of came to is that, okay, maybe this is similar to when, you're eating with a group of friends and one of them pulls out a salad and says they're going to eat healthy or whatever. Everyone else immediately starts to get them to eat bad, either as a joke or aggressively or whatever. They view that person sort of as a threat. I don't know if that's what's going on, but I just want to say it really kind of threw me off and was sort of this wake up call of, you are absolutely the minority here. Like there's just no doubt about it. Like, so I do not expect everyone to be carrying these around with them anytime soon. Yeah. Any questions?
Okay. Well, I think anybody who has listened to us understands, I think, where we're coming from, at least on the why we have a big problem with the status quo using a phone. I think you're exactly right. Actually, the thing I was thinking about was almost exactly the same example you just gave, which is when you're eating with a group of people and somebody mentions that they're vegan. The initial reaction, unless people are a little bit more practiced at this, I think a lot of people are like, well, I want 10 pounds of steak. That's, I love meat. Meat's great. They need to say how much they love meat, which is a weird reaction and kind of rude. But I think what's happening is that if somebody says, I don't eat animal products because I'm concerned about the ethics of it, then it doesn't matter how they say it. There is this implication that I think that eating meat is wrong, or there's something about it that's wrong, or I don't want to do it. And there's no way to say that without somebody else thinking, well, they think that this thing that I'm doing is wrong. And that's the reality of that. And there's no way around it. So you saying, I don't want to use a traditional phone, I think there's something wrong with it. I think there's something bad about it. I can kind of see why people would have that reaction of, I use my phone, you have a problem with me? Like, whether that's rational or not, it's besides the point. I think that there's just something going on there.
Right. And I did not, never would I have imagined this was something that I'd be dealing with when I got it. So, and it's not just, the people that were especially aggressive towards me, it's also just all of my friends and everyone.
Yeah.
It's the, I'm constantly being made fun of for doing this, or it just all the little things. It's just constant backlash, whether it's
Yeah.
funny or serious or whatever. I'm getting backlash everywhere.
Well, first off, I think your friends are kind of jerks. So let me
Well,
say that.
that is one reason why I like them. But the people
I
who were
yeah.
especially sort of aggressive towards me, and not that close to them.
Okay.
It wasn't that bad. I'm playing it up a little bit, but it still did really kind of shock me.
Yeah. Well, especially when it's everybody. But also, people don't usually react strongly to something they don't care about. So
Yeah.
for somebody or for everybody to go, "Oh my God, what are you doing? That's crazy. You're insane and a moron." You must have hit some kind of nerve there. If you
Right.
had said, "I'm going to wear a different color of shoes than you," nobody would have even continued that conversation. Who cares? But to say, "I'm ditching the thing that everyone here uses for 4 hours a day, plus or minus a few," that you're getting at something, and whether they've really thought it through or not, that's a sensitive issue.
So I keep getting these questions of, because it comes up in conversation quite often, and it's the
Yeah.
first week, so people have been talking to me about it. Some
Yeah.
people genuinely interested and think it's interesting, that, for whatever reason. But I've gotten questions like, well, one is, what if you need to take a picture? It's actually a pretty legitimate thing. One of my friends was like, well, what happens if you get into a car accident and you need to take pictures of the car, like for insurance reasons?
Mhm.
And it kind of got me. I was like, that I would definitely need a camera for that.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, that is such, and a lot of the things that come up are such rare, unlikely circumstances that you use as an excuse not to better your life. So you sacrifice and I'm talking about me here, not trying to convince anyone, but I have been sacrificing my life experience on a daily basis. It has been greatly diminished because of very rare and unlikely events that might happen someday, maybe. Right? So just to take that one example, I've been driving to Orlando like every workday for 6 years on some of the worst, highest probability for death highways in the U.S.
Yeah.
So every workday for hours for 6 years, and I've gotten into one accident, and it was a fender bender, and I didn't need to take any pictures. And I would like to think if it was bad enough, the cops would be there and they would be able to take pictures. So there's that one, like, very rare occurrence that might happen that you would use as an excuse not to get it. Not an excuse, just a reason to tell yourself not to get it. Again, not trying to convince anyone to get it. I'm just saying, if you ever considered something like this and you come up with all these reasons of, well, no, I have to stay in touch with work, whatever. Well, look at me. Okay, Michael, how would you rate me on a scale of normalness in life situation? Right? I'm married, I have a house, and I work a 9-to-5 job. You don't get much normal than that. So
Sure.
I can't be much different than everybody else out there in terms of what I need from a phone, right?
I think that's a compelling argument.
Now, yes, I'm an artist, so that, right off the bat makes me a little weird, but I am working in an office and have to do the same things that everybody else does. So in terms of normalness, I'm not that different. So my situation is not that weird. So for other people in a similar situation, it would also not be that weird. So all of if you really wanted to do something like this, the things that will pop up in your head are, oh, I have to stay connected at work. I need to be able to check this, or whatever. Or what if I want to take a picture? What if I want to do this or whatever? A lot of those reasons I had myself, but I've actually found haven't shown up at all. Now, again, only been a week, and I have not ditched the smartphone into the trash. Like, it's in my room. I can use it whenever I want. I've used it for Spotify when I was painting earlier. I've used it. That's pretty much it. I've pretty much just used it for Spotify. Yeah, like it's still there. And on days where I know, like because the GPS kind of sucks. Like it really sucks. It just like flashes because the refresh rate is so low. It just sort of, it flashes and it has a hard time finding your current location, which is really important when you're trying to get somewhere. They need to know, where you're coming from. So the GPS totally sucks. So, and that is something I rely so heavily on for the phone. So I think what I'll probably do is, if I know I'm going somewhere that I'm going to need the GPS, I will take my phone. If that doesn't really work, I'll just get a GPS for the car.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking so far. But really, overall, I haven't run into much of anything where my life is ruined because I don't have my smartphone. Like, I went to a restaurant the other day. They only had the little table QR code. I was like, everybody else is pulling out their phones and ordering. I'm like, hey, I don't have a smartphone. What can we do? He's like, oh, yeah, sure. I'll bring you a real menu. That was it. It was fine.
Right.
He seemed a little scared and like he had never done it before, but it was fine. I survived. So I guess I'm saying if anyone has considered doing something like this before, they think it would greatly improve their life. But you keep hearing all of these reasons, either mentioned by others or yourself. I can say, at least for the 1 week that I've been using it, I haven't really run into much of anything because I can do it all on my computer when I'm home, and then I can do it all on my computer when I'm at work. Like it's, I don't know, hasn't been a big deal for me yet.
So I think that is really an excellent point, what you're saying there. Because I'm very much in that camp. I don't want to buy a light phone. You're the vegan, and I'm gonna talk about how much I like to eat meat here, right?
Again, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you want one or don't want one.
Well, I want a few weeks ago I think maybe the difference here is that I have a very different philosophy on this problem. We both agree on the problem, really 100% or very close to 100%. A phone or any electronic device that has unfettered access to the world's information is a problem. The phone is especially a problem because it is with you all the time, and we've been over this a million times, but it allows you to pursue every little impulse and need for distraction you ever have. It's a huge problem. I'm shocked that this turned out to be problem number one. We started this podcast on this premise of, hey, let's figure out how to be better at life and everything, and how to, we're just trying to improve things. Issue number one turned out to be the phone. So we agree on the problem 100%. But I keep thinking about my my struggles on the desktop at my computer, because I work at a computer all day long. And I even spend a lot of time on a computer to play games and things like that. So it's this huge chunk of my day where I'm at a computer, more so than most people. And so I could put the phone away, but that's irrelevant because I'm right in front of the computer, and that's an even more accessible way of getting at all this stuff. And I really took a hard look at this and put in some real effort a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever, trying to think, what is it about this that is such a problem? And we talked through that at length, so I won't go over it all again, but I made the realization that unless my entire life is radically different, completely different career field, completely different set of hobbies, completely different all kinds of things, then I have to use a computer. There's really just no way around it. So the nuclear option of just no computer is not realistic. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I live with this? How do I make this not so terrible feeling where I just feel like my brain is being pulled in a million different directions every time I sit down here? So I put together this system, and again, we talked about this, so I won't go over it in super detail, but I really tried to think about what is it that makes this so bad. And there were a few fundamental things. One was how easy it was to get into these distracting things. There's just very, very little friction to opening a new tab in a browser and going somewhere that has some kind of endless refreshing feed, YouTube, Hacker News, Reddit, whatever. Um, so that there was very little friction there. There was this I don't even know what to call this, but the space that you're able to operate within on a computer is vast. You can have so many browser tabs, so many windows, so many different workspaces and everything that you're never having to really stop doing something. You don't have to close down your program and get rid of all that and save your work and shut it off and then bring up something else. You can always just sort of divert into a new thing, a new tab, a new workspace, a new window, a new this or that. And so in the it's designed to just grow and accommodate all of that as easily as it can. So that was another fundamental problem. And then the third, which is related, is kind of what I was just describing, where you never have to leave what you're doing. You never have to make that contextual change from, okay, I'm gonna shut everything down and go be distracted. You just sort of jump over there. And so those three fundamental things were what I was really trying to think about. And so I put a lot of work into trying to design an environment for myself that attempted to address those things. And if I were on Mac OS, I could not have done this. If I were on Windows, could not have done this. Well, I won't say couldn't have, but I think it would be difficult. I would love it so much if other people out there made an effort to try and tackle this on some of those operating systems to at least see where they get. But I'm on Linux, and not even just that, but I use a pretty out there version of Linux where the desktop is very non-traditional and extremely customizable. I use a tiling window manager, which is, it's like, a niche inside of a niche. But because I'm in that situation, I'm able to craft this very unique, very controlled and designed by me environment that attempts to solve all these problems. So, and just to describe it very briefly, when I work, I only have one screen. Like the two-dimensional surface that I see, that's all that I have. And if a program is open, it must occupy space on that screen. And there isn't even a depth component to the screen. So it's not like you can have a bunch of windows and they're all sort of stacked on each other, or they can be minimized. Like there's no such thing as minimizing. There's no such thing as stacking. If something is running, it has to occupy space on the screen. And because I only have one screen, it runs out of space very fast. So what that means is that if I'm working on some coding and I want to open a browser, that has to split my screen in half. So, okay, my code is here, the browser is here, and that's fine. I can operate that way. But if I want to do a third thing, then suddenly it has to intrude on the screen even more. So I have this tiny little rectangle that I'm like peering at, trying to see. And if to add anything else, it gets even worse. And so very quickly you realize I have to close down the project I'm working on if I want to pay attention to this other thing. And so it forces you to limit your distractions that way. And the browser doesn't have tabs. It can only open things in a new window. So any new thing you open, it has to occupy space. So you're forced to kind of evaluate whether or not it's worth having this open and whether I really do want to close down the project I'm working on to look at Reddit, which forces a choice. Whereas prior to that, there is no choice. You just kind of do it absentmindedly and it doesn't interfere with anything. There's also I've kind of put friction in the way of opening the browser, making that a bit more difficult, and try to eliminate friction for things that I think are good, like opening notes and documentation and stuff like that. Like that stuff happens at a keystroke where I can write journal entries, I can put together a to-do list, and that's very fluid, very fast, but the browser has a lot of friction in it. Anyway, okay, so I know I'm getting
So
into
why does this equal you don't want a light phone?
okay. So the reason why this equals I don't want a light phone is that I have tried blocking the browser. Even let's just take something really simple. On a desktop, I've tried no Reddit. Reddit is a problem site for me. It's just somewhere where I can very easily get distracted. I have habits that have formed around this site. So forget everything else. I'll just put some piece of software that says block Reddit. Well, that works for a little while, but eventually there will be some scenario that comes up where I'm trying to solve a problem and the answer is on Reddit. I can see the search result in Google. It has a preview like, hey, this person experiencing the exact same problem that I am. This very obscure thing that I've been working at for hours, and there's a Reddit post. And I need to read it. Like realistically, I need to read that. I can't waste hours of my time knowing the information is right there. I can't tell my employer that I decided to waste hours of time trying to come up with a solution that was right there, that someone else has already invested those hours and found an answer for. So I have to unblock Reddit, and now Reddit is unblocked. And we're kind of just back to where we started.
Right.
So the problem is that I haven't found it to be very realistic to kind of take the nuclear option where I'm not going to have a browser. I'm going to uninstall Chrome and Firefox, or even that I'm going to block sites, because even though it works for a while, eventually I wind up coming back to that. And so my thinking was, okay, rather than just try and drop it entirely, I want to think really hard about why these things become problematic. And I want to create an environment that, as much as possible, tries to eliminate those reasons for them becoming problematic, where I can use it if I need it. But there's all these things in place that try and prevent that from being habit forming and being distracting and causing all these issues that I keep running into. And so I pursued that on the desktop. And the reason I was able to do it is because I happen to be using a desktop environment that is extremely powerful and extensible and gives me tons of control. And so I'm able to implement all these ideas that you couldn't or would struggle very much to implement somewhere else. So I've designed this environment. I've been using it for a while, and I am so incredibly happy with how this has worked. It's not perfect. It doesn't solve every problem, but the difference is absolutely palpable. And so I think about the phone, and just as an example, I think I even mentioned this last week. I deleted the browser off my phone. And I'm thinking, awesome. I installed a text-based browser on the phone, which covers a lot of the use cases where I need to get some information, but the browser is such a problematic application for me that the text-based browser can solve the problem, even though it's kind of painful, and it prevents me from having to reinstall the browser. So I'm thinking, like, I think I got this figured out. I delete the browser, I got the text-based browser, and that's cool. It'll work. But the other day, I was out somewhere, and I needed to sign into my health insurance app. And I have a Kaiser as an insurer, and one of their core company values that they were founded on is that they want to make sure that everything sucks for anyone who uses Kaiser at every opportunity. So their app is a piece of garbage, of course, and you can't sign in through, like, when you hit the sign in button, it opens a browser. It makes you sign in through their website and then uses this OAuth thing to, like, give a token back to the app, and so it signs in. So basically, if you don't have a browser, you can't sign into the app. But there was an urgent message that I'm not allowed to know the contents of until I can view the urgent message that needs my immediate attention through the app. And so I wound up having to reinstall a browser so that I could go through the app. And that was it. That was like, I needed to get in there. I needed to know what the hell they wanted to tell me, which of course turned out to be nothing. But I had to reinstall a browser to do that. And then I'm busy, so I go about doing whatever. But now there's a browser back on my phone. And sure enough, I'm sitting down for lunch by myself. I had pulled out my phone thinking, oh, I'm going to check my messages and stuff. And there's a browser app right there. And without thinking too much, I opened it up and I'm back on the internet. And I actually uninstalled it right before we started the podcast because it occurred to me that we're probably going to talk about it. And I felt guilty about the fact that I had reinstalled a browser. I know I've been down this weird sort of side channel here, but the problem is that one, this app is stupid and it requires a browser. But what I wish I could do, I wish I could create something on my phone, like a rule or a script or something, that every night at 2 a.m. it uninstalls the browser. And it makes it really annoying to have to reinstall it. It's going to take me a few minutes of typing in a complicated password and stuff to reinstall the browser. So I have the text browser. I can use that if I need it. But if I'm really in a situation where I need the browser, I can't sign in to my health insurance app because there's a message that might tell me I have cancer, then I can reinstall it. I can use it, but it always defaults back to being gone. And there's all kinds of things like that that I can think of that I've implemented on the desktop because, again, it's a powerful environment where I can do that sort of stuff, but I can't do it on a phone. And my issue here is that the phone is so restricted and it's so designed to not give you control over it. You're really just at the mercy of the designers of these apps and the operating system, that you're kind of just stuck having to live with whatever they've decided you have to live with. And so you've taken this, I call it the nuclear option, where you have a dumb phone now.
I'll let you finish, but okay, go ahead and finish.
Well, that's it. I see a possible solution to this problem if you had enough power to implement it. If you could take this operating system and really design it in a way that's goes in the opposite direction of what everything has so far, which is, hey, let's make things super easy for you and you're going to get hooked and addicted and all that. Like, design all these systems to prevent that. And then I think you could have a world where you could have a phone that doesn't do this to you, or it at the very least makes it much better.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. But they don't have that. That's what pisses me off. Why hasn't Apple released a phone that doesn't suck your life dry? Like, that's the solution that I'm looking for. And I think that until we get something like that, that merges both the smartphone and this dumb phone, once they're merged, then I'll get that. But in the meantime, I have found the solution for me. I mean, again, only time will tell. It's only been a week. But I think that what I'm doing is exactly what you have done with your computer. I've changed the environment. If I really need my phone, I still have my phone. I don't carry it on me, but it's there. If I need to bring it, then I'll bring it somewhere. If there's something about insurance where I have to have a phone app to use it, well, then I'll drive home, get my phone, and then I'll have it on the app. But to me, after living a week with this thing, after actually seeing my life without being sucked down this black hole of a phone, I don't ever want to go back, ever. Now, of course, only time will tell. Maybe next week I'll say, yeah, that was too hard, I'm back. But I haven't felt even an inkling of like, oh, I really want to go back. I have to be strong. It's been like, hell no. Keep that shit away from me. Like, just let me be free. I feel like I walked out of prison. I don't want to go back. Like, I don't ever want to go back. Again, only time will tell. But in the last week, I feel like My energy levels have been 10 times what they were before. My ability to focus. I painted for like 4 or 5 hours today. I wrote. I did a lot of writing today. I worked on editing my video. I woke up early. Like, I got it
Yeah,
all
yeah.
done in one day. Like, I know it's cliche or whatever, but I'm telling you, the little challenge we did where we left our phone plugged in, that showed us what it was like to only use your phone occasionally during the day. Well, that was beginner stuff, okay? That was cute. This is different. Like, this is really what I wanted. This is exactly what I was looking for. And it's not like I got the light phone and I threw my phone away and I'm never using technology again. That's what
Yeah.
I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to take the nuclear option because I thought that was the only way. But this was like, oh, this isn't nuclear at all. I just take this phone with me when I leave the house. That's it.
Yeah.
When I get home, I have my other phone, but without all the trash on it. That's just on the computer. And the computer, now that it shuts off at 10:30 every night, or 10:35 or whatever time it is, it shuts off at a specific time. Like, I'm only around to use it occasionally. It's so controlled. Like, I got home on that first day and I had not checked my email at all. I opened up my email and I had like 50 emails. I'm like, I would have checked my phone for every single one of those and I would have opened them and I would have deleted them or read them or whatever. I would have dealt with that all throughout the day. But instead, I came home, opened up my computer. I had 50 emails and I just delete, 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 delete. And I just deleted them all within, 30 seconds. And then that was it. Whereas if
Yeah.
it was on the phone, I would have spent like 10, 15 minutes doing that. And then you spread that across. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
if I bought you a light phone, would you try using it for a month?
No.
Okay.
Well, okay, but
I'm not even preaching light phone, but what I am preaching is for those of us, and I know that's not everyone. In fact, it's a very small number of people, but for those of us who have something that they want to do, like me with painting and art and stuff, and you're constantly pulled away from that by this thing, or by so many things, but the biggest one seems to be the phone. And even if you think, I thought that I was this advanced, like, non-user of the phone. I mean, really, we've worked hard at not using the phone.
Right.
I would consider myself an advanced non-phone user. But once I got rid of it, I realized that I was not that. Or maybe I was, but going from that to no phone or to this little baby Kindle thing, it's a world, it's a complete world of difference. Um, only time will tell.
well,
But
here's my big issue. This is why I'm gonna say even if you gave me a light phone too, I wouldn't use it. In that, at its core, I want to be able to use a phone to communicate. If you said you only get one thing, I'd say I want it to communicate and that's it. And I think that would be enough to cover the absolute minimum viable thing. Although probably maps would be a second, right? But I need to be able to yeah, and that seems like a bit of a hang up. Also, they could have a camera. The thing costs $300. That is kind of expensive. They
is
could include a
300
camera.
Okay, first off, $300 is not expensive.
That's
It
what I
has
paid for
all-
this. This is the Google Pixel 6a. It was $300.
Did you get it used?
No?
Oh, all right. Well, the $300 price mark for me did not seem high, but
It could have a
everyone else seems to
camera.
think different. You're right. It could have a camera, and I don't think that would take away from the experience at all. Like,
Right.
at all.
Yeah,
I would be
nobody
totally
gets
fine with a
addicted
camera.
to, well, yeah, people get addicted to TikTok. They don't get addicted to just taking
No, but they don't.
photos.
This tiny little baby company that made this, they don't have the technology or
I know.
the child labor to build a bunch of phones with
You're
cameras
right.
on them.
You're
So
right.
it's like this one guy that just kind of makes it all. So
Yeah, and I should
I'm okay with giving him $300.
Yes, you're totally
know?
right. And it's insane that I would be critical of somebody trying to solve what we both agree is potentially the most important problem facing most of us.
I don't think it's perfect either. To me, the perfect solution would be the smartphone rethought with the user in mind.
Yeah.
That's what I want. But again, until then, I have to make do with what we have. And I found a
Right.
piece of
Yeah. You're
hardware
right.
that seems
You're
to
right.
really get me there, or get me very close to
Yes.
it.
I know. I'm arguing that my fantasy phone is better than your real phone, and that's stupid.
Duh, of
because,
course it is. I
yeah,
agree with you, but it's
right.
not out, so I can't
I know.
use it.
Okay, but okay, here is the thing that prevents me from using the light phone. So I use 2 ways of communicating: Discord through direct messages, and I use an app called Element, which is based on the Matrix protocol, which is sort of kind of like an open source version of Discord. And that is how I communicate with a lot of people, family members, my wife, everybody. And I do not use text messages, and I don't want to use text messages. I actually really care a lot about the ideas behind Matrix, this open source, not controlled by any particular company communication protocol. Like I've invested time, I've contributed code to them, I've talked with the founder, I love what they're doing. And it's already ingrained where I just use that. So I don't text anyone. There's like 2 people that I ever exchange texts with, and it's like every 6 months. So if I switch to the phone, it just wouldn't work as a communication device. And that to me is like bare minimum. I would need to be able to use at minimum the Matrix stuff. And it would not, like, that wouldn't be hard. You could do that. I could write a Matrix client to run on this thing, but it doesn't sound like that's an option. Like I can't, the whole design of the light phone is that you can't add anything else that it doesn't already have. So like part of me is a little bit frustrated in that it's almost what I want, but it's not. And it just really doesn't quite cover it for me. And the GPS doesn't need to suck. It could have a camera. It could accommodate some of these other things, and you could wind up with something that's a much easier sell for a lot of people. You said a lot of people were like, "Oh, what happens if you get in a car wreck?"
They keep updating it, and they keep, yeah. I mean, again, I got the light phone because it looked like the closest thing to what I was looking for. Like, I'm not here to preach light phone 2 to the world, but for their sake, I will say they are continuing to update it. Like, it comes out with new stuff. Eventually it might have a camera or whatever, but I don't think they have the production for that, or they don't have the ability to do that kind of thing right now.
Right.
So I'm sure they,
again, I'm not trying to criticize the light phone. It feels like we're missing some kind of low-hanging fruit. And
I agree.
I'm not frustrated at them. I'm frustrated at the world for, I think, missing the boat so many times. Like, there's been this push to the screen time thing, and being able to set screen time limits. That's fairly recent. There's been, Apple pushed for that. Android has pushed for that too. They've said, we gotta help people. People are struggling with tech addiction and whatnot. So let's get out some features here that help. And they're stupid. They suck. All they do is just make you feel bad about spending time on the phone. Then what is the good of that?
Yeah. Look how addicted you are. Is what it is. But
they're just reminding you how much you should feel crappy about yourself. They are not getting at those fundamental issues, which these companies understand this so well. They build software that is designed to be addictive, and they're really, really, really good at it. They have optimized the hell out of this stuff in order to increase the monthly active users, the amount of time that people spend on these sites. They know how to do it, and they know how to not do it. They know how, or what you would need to do to keep people from getting hooked on this stuff. And I have actually some people in Discord this week were talking about an app. One second, I can't remember the name of it. But the idea is, and I don't know who developed this, but you can install it. And the idea is that anytime you open an app, I think it uses the assistive device APIs of the phone where it opens on top of the app and covers it up, and it says, "Hey, take a breath" or something.
But the problem that I have run into with all of that kind of thing, because I had that on my YouTube and whatever, is that you just disable it eventually.
Right,
And you go
exactly.
right back. The reason why I kind of like this light phone is because I cannot do that. And that even though that is definitely one of its weaknesses, oh, I can't have extra stuff. That is one of its biggest strengths, is that I can't download Discord. I can delete Discord from my phone and I can have it on my phone. So it should be theoretically up to me. But if it's up to me, I will download it again and I will check it constantly throughout the day. With the light phone, I
Right.
can't do that. So that's a huge plus for me. Also a
But
downside.
okay, you and I communicate over Discord, right? We use direct
Yes.
messages to
But
each
I can
other.
use that in the browser at work as well. So like I
Right.
can
But okay, say you take a trip or you're going to be somewhere else and we need
I'd
to
probably
plan
just take my
podcast
phone.
stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Which is sort of going back to the smartphone.
Yes. I agree. There should be some, amazing tech that takes all of this in mind.
It's
I'm
not
just saying
amazing. It's super simple. It just needs to default back to a good state. If you have,
but
let's
it doesn't
say,
exist. Like it
but
doesn't
it
exist right now.
could. Everything is
I
there.
know. I agree. I am hoping
Kills me.
that through me buying this light phone, apparently the fact that it exists means there is some demand for it. There are people out there who want this kind of thing, who are kind of fed up with the phones and want this kind of thing. And my hope is that eventually the bigger companies decide to take a shot at that market. I mean, whatever greedy intention they use to get there, whatever. But
Yeah.
I would love a better thing that defaults to being great, but it's not there right now. So I have to work with what's available, and what's available is this
I know.
thing.
But what's available won't work for me. And it won't
That's
work
fair.
for a lot of people.
I
And
have found that out recently.
I'm angry about it. Well, but again, I'm so on board. I'm so on board. And I can't tell you the difference that this new designed to not mess with my head desktop environment has made. It's really been amazing. And it lets me do all the stuff that I needed to do. Like it's just designed, and this is just by me. I bet if you got a lot of smart people who really thought about this, they could come up with way better things and ways of designing this. This is just my improvisational first take, and it's still a massive difference because no one ever has even attempted this, as far as I'm aware, of trying to design a desktop environment that doesn't distract the hell out of you and fry your brain. You could do this on a phone. You could do it right now. Somebody, I know our audience isn't gigantic, but man, if there's somebody out there who really thinks they have the mental bandwidth for this, make a fork of Lineage OS, which is an Android operating system that you can just install, and try and implement these very simple, very fundamental things that we've just been talking about. Constraining the space that you can operate in creating friction between you and the things that are distracting, lowering friction between you and things that are good, defaulting things back to the optimal state automatically. You could, like, that could be done. It is simply a matter of effort. And please,
I agree.
Please, somebody do that.
But it's difficult because the reason why we love the smartphone is because of the ease at which you can get all the things that you want right away. Like that's what makes it so amazing. It also sucks a lot. So what you're imagining is something that defaults to being really boring and not a smartphone. But then you're able, okay, so what? You're able to venture out, like you can download Discord and use it for a while, but then it starts showing, like after 2 days it starts becoming more resistant, and then after 3 days it just deletes it, and then you have to go through, enter your passcode, re-download it again. And
to me it is there's not that much to it. I mean, My setup for the browser on my desktop, there's not a whole lot that's different about it. One, there's no tabs. So if you open a window, that's your window, and you can do what you want there, but you can't open tabs. If you want to see something else, it has to be a new window. And so that is constrained by the physical size of the screen. So it sounds silly, but what that does is it forces you to evaluate whether you need to open something new or not. If I have a tab, or well, not a tab, but if I have a window open with some important article that I don't want to lose, I have to think, okay, I want to open something else. If I really do need this, then I'm going to copy the URL and put it in the notes. And then it's saved, and I can even say what it was. But often enough, I didn't really need to do that. It forces you to think. And so I can think about that, save it or not, and then go on to some other web page. It forces you to not just wander through this infinite fractal space of one thing leads to another, and it never interferes with what you had before, right? It's a simple change, but it makes you do that, where it makes you evaluate, I can only have so many pieces of paper on my desk. Simple thing we get in the physical world, don't get it in the digital world. I also have, whenever I open the browser, I have to put in a password. And it's kind of long and kind of annoying. I really do need to use Firefox. I have to type that out, and then it opens. No big deal. It only takes, 10 seconds or less, but it forces me to have to pause and kind of think. I think, do I really need to open Firefox? If I don't, then maybe I just don't do it. It's really, really simple stuff. Like, create friction, prevent you from just habitually flowing into this pattern. That's the whole thing. We talked about this so long ago, even. The slot machine. A slot machine is designed in a very particular way. There's two fundamental parts to it. One is the ease at which you can use it. You don't have to swim across a river to pull a lever on a slot machine and then swim back to do it again. They aren't designed that way. You don't have to put in a bunch of money and sign in with a password and go through a whole bunch of menus, and then you get one pull, and then you have to do all that stuff again. They're designed to where you sit down and you just pull the lever. You take this simple, satisfying action. And on a phone, there's an equivalent in that you just press on an icon. You press on the Discord icon and you're met with a bunch of things. And I think Discord is one of the best things out there in terms of its abusiveness. It's not.
Yeah.
It's nowhere even on the spectrum compared to a lot of these social media sites.
But
it's much
I
simpler.
will say,
yeah, I know.
because of how great it is, I use it a lot.
Yeah, same, totally, and I agree. But just it can get so much worse. I think TikTok has just really I won't say perfected, because I'm sure we'll see something better eventually. But you press the TikTok icon and you're in. Like, you have pulled the lever, and it is as easy as can be. And then the other thing that makes this addictive, so there's the ease at which you can get into it, and then the other part is the randomized reward aspect, where you pull the lever on the slot machine, and if you just got 25 cents every time you pull the slot machine, it actually would not be that exciting. Be like, oh, I'm making money every time I win. But you'd be like, well, a quarter, is that really that much? It takes me 30 seconds to wait for the wheels to stop spinning. Like, I'm actually only making like a little bit of money. It's not that, like, you would not be all that excited. It's the randomness, the unknown, that makes that work so well, where I could win nothing or I could win $1 million. And those two things paired together, that's what makes it so addictive. So that's present again with TikTok. Simple action. Tap on the icon, or once you're in it, you just swipe up, you're on to the next video, and you're presented with something completely random and novel, and it could be anything. And so every time, at any moment, you can pull that lever and be greeted with some random reward. That's the problem. Along with other kind of manifestations and aspects of it that I was talking about, but you can eliminate a lot of those things. You can make it to where you can't just keep pulling the lever on TikTok. You can make it to where it's difficult to open. Now, unfortunately, there's probably no way of making it more difficult to move from one I don't know if they call it TikTok video to the next, right? That's kind of up to them. But you can put friction there and you can prevent that from being so easy.
But, well, not to shoot holes in your idea, but also, you know that a phone like that would always have a workaround. Like that you can't make
but
it.
here's the thing. Your phone has a workaround too, which is you can go get your other phone. Or even then, like say you throw away your phone, you can go to your computer and you can do this stuff too. Like there's always a workaround available to you. It's just a matter of how easy is the workaround and does the workaround stay? Again, I can get to distracting websites. If I, on my setup, if I want to go to Reddit, I can do that. I have to open a browser. I have to type in my password. I have to go into my router settings and disable a router rule, firewall rule, that prevents me from visiting Reddit. Then I also have to open the hosts file on my computer, enter an administrator password, and delete a block out of the host file, save that, and then go back to the browser, and then I can view Reddit. Right? So there's a way for me to get there. It requires a bunch of steps, but I can do it. And I do it often enough, right? Again, sometimes I really do need to see something on Reddit, so I have to go through this process to get it. Other times, I'm just really not feeling things and I really just want to waste time on Reddit. And so I'll do that too, and that happens. But here's the thing. This is the key. This is like the fundamental piece of this that makes it work. All of those things, once I've typed in the password, once I've deleted that line out of the host file, once I've disabled the firewall rule in my router, all of those revert back after some amount of time. So I can do that. I can be on Reddit doing whatever. But then if I try that again in an hour, I have to do it all again. It doesn't stay in that state of letting me do it. So it is somewhat equivalent to if you were to install Discord on your phone, eventually it deletes itself and then you have to go through that process again. That to me is one of the most fundamental aspects to making this work, is that it always reverts back to the good state.
I agree with you. I think we should make something like that. Let me ask you this. Do you think I should be using a light phone right now?
Yeah, totally. If it works, then I think you should. I'm somewhat skeptical that you're still going to be using it day in and day out a year from now. But I would
am
love
too.
it if that were the case.
I am also skeptical, but I thought that I would be feeling a lot of resistance. I thought that I would want to go back to the phone. Like, I thought this would be hard, but it's been, I don't want to sound like I'm this naive,
Yeah.
suffering from the novelty problem kid, although I kind of am, just being a week in. But I have found the benefits have far outweighed like anything else. I have not been tempted or wanted to carry the smartphone with me. I love what's happening, and I want it to stay that way.
I think it's going to depend, like for you specifically, I think it's going to depend a lot on what the workarounds you have in place are. As you said, you have to keep up with work. You have to keep up with your email. You need to talk on Discord.
Yeah. What I imagine will happen, or what might start to happen, is that I start using my computer a lot more, because I have to use it in order to access any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'll start downloading them onto my phone. Maybe I will, but I don't think, on the smartphone, even when I occasionally use it. I don't think I'll do that because I can use them very easily on my computer. So I'm a little afraid of the computer usage going up. So far it hasn't really. But I also have that thing in place where it shuts off my computer at 10:30. And that has saved me a bunch of times because at night, if I'm doing something, it shuts off. So
which
that's
is a great example of changing your environment and defaulting to the good state, in that you're not relying on yourself to remember to shut the computer down at 10:31 every day. You have a rule in place on the operating system that just does it.
that is how I feel that this light phone thing has worked, is that we tried leaving our phones plugged in. We try deleting things. We try not
Yeah.
using them as much. None of it works because it's all based on us being, technically everything is sort of based on what we choose to do. But it was always this test of willpower, which,
Yeah.
um, if you look at my sheet on me doing pull-ups every day, willpower only lasts about 3 months. or
Yeah.
I can only hold this ambitious, wonderful feeling for about 3 months, and then it all becomes a bit shattered and it starts to drift apart. And so anything with the phone, it's like, oh yeah, I'm really gung-ho about not using it. Well, usually it's after a week, but after 3 months max, I'm going to be back to where I was. But something like this is a big environment change, which I love because it's
Yeah.
not based on me being strong. I can be weak and still carry the light phone. Like,
Yeah.
so I have hope in that.
Yeah. 100% agree. To me, I couldn't agree with that anymore. In that, like you said, you can do something new for a while, you get the novelty phase, but unless you just become a different person, eventually your levels of willpower are going to be roughly the same they were before you were doing this thing you want to do. So the
But
environmental change, that's
yeah,
something that if it's done right, sticks around forever.
but one of the reasons why I feel like good about this, um, is because to me I'm not becoming a different person. I have resisted and hated the fact that I have to use the smartphone all the time. I've hated
Yeah.
that for years. It doesn't feel like me. I don't want to feel like that. I hate it. I hate the
Yeah.
fact that I'm constantly checking things. I
Yeah.
try to stop, but I can't stop. I'm just a victim to this thing. So to me, going to something like this feels like me. Other people don't feel like that. They are
Yeah.
perfectly at home to sit for hours on their phone. I don't feel like that. So this to me feels like me becoming more me. So I hope that means something positive. But, but yeah.
I, I,
I just I I know that we could argue over what tech you should get or not get, or argue about what should exist or not exist, or I want some ideal piece of technology, but it doesn't exist right now. So what I have right now is a combination of a smartphone and this light phone. And
yeah.
I did not expect it to work this well. I did not think it would work this well. I thought it would be really hard. I'd probably be really excited about it for a little bit or whatever. But what I didn't expect, I didn't see coming, was how easy and freeing it would feel. I didn't think it'd be easy at all. And so I just want, for anyone who is even like half considering something like this, something in a similar vein, just from my 1 week experience, I would say please go do that because it's worth $300 for me to feel like I'm living a better life. Um, I don't know.
And
I just, yeah,
and I feel like I've been very negative this whole time. And that's good. That's on brand for me. But
yeah, that's fine.
I I am trying to pursue a solution. Like my biggest issue here with the light phone is that I just don't think it's a solution for everybody.
I
Even
agree.
if you just really wanted to make it work, I think even just for me, and I'm as on board as it gets in terms of trying to solve this problem, I don't think it would work for me. So the solution that I'm working with is actually somewhat similar to you in that I have two phones. And this one is my unrestricted phone that has a web browser and YouTube and all of those things. And then this one is my everyday carrying it around phone. You'll notice that I have shattered the screens on both of these because that's just how I roll. But this is my everyday phone, and it doesn't have a browser, it doesn't have YouTube, it doesn't have all of those things. Now, the problem, and I really think if I could solve this problem, then it would be pretty close. But like I said, I needed a browser at some point to do a thing that,
Right.
I mean, in
And
retrospect, maybe wasn't, but it felt pretty important at the time. right? If I
Yeah.
could get that to default back to being deleted, and I'm going to look into more of this. I haven't really pursued this. Maybe with a rooted phone, there is some way of forcing an app to or to uninstall itself on some schedule. But if I could get it to revert back to no browser, I think I'd actually have a pretty decent solution where I can have the specific apps that I want, and then I could have this series of essentially like blacklisted apps where on some schedule they get removed. And so even if I need it or I'm just
Yeah.
feeling not good, it goes back to being a clean phone. So I think there might be something there.
Awesome. You see how your solution to the technology problem that you deal with is off the beaten path. Okay. You have two phones and a super special curated computer experience that you've
Yep.
made.
Yep.
I have now two phones, a computer that shuts off at a specific time, and things installed and installed on different
Yeah.
things. We've gone off the beaten path of typical solutions and started coming up with different means of solving these problems. And I have not seen many other people start to think outside of the box that is shaped like their phone.
Yeah.
Like, I now have a smartphone that has a short list of things on it and this dumb phone, and the combination of the two, for some weird reason, is working really well, at least for a week so far.
Yeah.
And you've come up with these other solutions. I guess what I want other people to see is that, oh, or just to start questioning these like everyday things that you do and know that there might be a solution that is not typical to what normal people do that might be available to you, I guess. Because I did not consider this a thing a couple months ago. I didn't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I found it a while ago, but I didn't consider it for me. I thought there were a bunch of reasons for me not to get it, and then I got it, and I got everything that I wanted from it and more. And so I don't know. I just wonder how many other people out there could be experiencing something like this, whether it's this phone or a dark phone or a razor or just another smartphone that's curated differently. Like whatever the solution is, I wonder how many people are not pursuing these things because I don't know, because they're just not thinking about it.
Yeah. So the other day I was reading something. I don't remember the details exactly, so it's maybe worth fact checking me here. But I was reading about how this was like, I want to say like 200 years ago or something. There was some like exhibit or something where they were showing off the fattest man in the world. And there was this guy who was 300 pounds. And, society was like, oh my God, look how fat this guy is. And what's amazing about that is that 300 pounds is like not very big, in modern society. I mean, you don't have to go far to find somebody who weighs 300 pounds. And I'm not trying to make any statement about appearance or whatever here, but it's remarkable to compare the current environment compared to what it was just a short few hundred years ago. And forget about fat, because I think that's like a little bit of a like difficult issue to even talk about. But just think about the incidence of type 2 diabetes. The rise in type 2 diabetes is so steep. It's actually terrifying to just think about what the healthcare system is going to look like in a few decades, because it's just going up so fast. And people take what is, in my opinion, this very silly perspective of people just, they make bad choices, they're weak, they don't eat right. And it's like, yeah, but that's a stupid take, because people aren't different than they were a couple hundred years ago. The environment has been shifting dramatically to a point where it used to require no willpower to maintain a healthy calorie intake. In fact, starvation was often the biggest thing you were facing, in that it took every amount of effort to not starve to death. But now that's not the case for the vast majority of people, where you are now required to exercise a tremendous amount of willpower to not overeat. And you can point fingers all over the place, and it sort of doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's just food is very cheap. A lot of very palatable, very high calorie foods have been subsidized and are mass produced, like flour, sugar, whatever. It's just, we're in a totally different world. And as somebody who frequently dabbles in weirdo diets and weirdo lifestyles, I can tell you how that the reaction you got with the phone is pretty similar to the reaction you'll get trying to eat even moderately different than most people. And I think people are better now than they maybe were 10 years ago or so. But even still, just I've been on keto for 7 or 8 months. Most people, when I say that, they react like, whoa, that's a crazy diet. But it's not. It's really simple. It's just cutting down on one of the macronutrients. I mostly eat pretty normal stuff like salads and whatever. Like, in the grand scheme, it's not that weird of a diet. There's entire cultures who have eaten that way. And I'm not at all saying that people need to do keto. I don't think there's anything magical about that. But just the diet is not that out there, and people still react so strongly. But if you zoom out a little bit and look at the entire environment that we're in, the terrifying thing should be not being a weirdo, because the numbers are very straightforward. There's no reasonable way to argue anything different other than people are on a really bad path. The normal thing that everyone does when you just kind of eat the way that feels right, you just sort of, whatever they've got at a restaurant, that's what you eat. You go to the grocery store, you buy the stuff that's there, you just sort of eat like it just feels like you should. The odds of you being unhealthy are incredibly high because the environment is bad. Objectively, it is bad. It is not optimized for human health. It is optimized for other things that are not necessarily in your best interest. Although food is very cheap, even in today's somewhat inflated environment. Like, food is cheap. That's been good for humanity. But there has been these massive side effects on making this very cheap food, along with all other kinds of things that we're optimizing for. Point being, just like you're saying, the default environment is a really bad one. It doesn't feel like it because it's the default environment. It's what everybody kind of experiences. Everybody has 4 hours of screen time on their phone. That's normal, but normal is not normal. And you kind of have to be a weirdo if you want to stay physically healthy. Some people, they, for whatever reason, seem to be able to operate in the environment without any special rules for themselves, and they do fine. I think those people exist for food. Those people exist for probably technology usage too, but it's a lot more rare than we tend to think. It's probably like 10%, maybe a little higher. But for all the rest of us, you gotta be a weirdo and do keto for electronics or time restricted. I don't care what diet, whatever. You got to have a diet in order to not overeat or eat poorly. And I think you kind of need that too for dealing with the environment that we're in now.
I was watching this documentary on the 1920s, and they were talking about the rise of automobiles. Henry Ford was pumping out these, or cranking out these Model Ts. They were going everywhere. I mean, everyone was getting cars.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, there's cars on all the roads, driving very fast, and there's a lot of them, tons of them. Previously, they didn't have road signs and traffic signs and really a organization to traffic. It wasn't a thing. But then, out of nowhere, people start getting hit. I mean, children are killed by automobile accidents. I mean, left and right, people are dying. Like, it's a huge deal. They're dying left and right. So what starts to happen is, you have all this time go by where there was no issue. Then all of a sudden, there's tons of issues everywhere. So people slowly start to petition, and there's these parades for traffic control, give us some traffic control or organization or whatever. And so
Yeah.
there begins to be this demand or this outcry for, let's correct this mistake that we seem to have been making. So you have this wonderful ingenuity of the car, and then it's available to all the people, and or the everyday person, and it's this wonderful thing. But then you don't think about this at the beginning, but there's all these side effects to it. I mean, really, like, children are dying. People are dying left and right because there are automobiles everywhere. Is that Henry Ford's fault? I don't really think so. But whose fault is it? You know?
Right.
But who cares about the fault? It then becomes, well, what do you do about it? And if you look at, technology with the phone, no matter what phone you're using, I mean, we got the cars. Everybody's got the cars now, and we're driving them everywhere. And we didn't think about this, but now we're running into issues. And I think, just the fact that this light phone exists, or any of these, dumb phones or whatever, these alternate solutions exist, shows that there are people finding big problems with this wonderful ingenuity. And only then do you get some sort of structure back, or you get some sort of pushback on all of that progress, or some sort of check, like reality check on where you are. And it happened with sugar and all the available foods everywhere. Like, or has slowly been happening for a very long time of, oh, maybe we shouldn't eat so badly all the time, or have this available to everyone, or, So to me, technology is now in that stage where it needs to have a reality check,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And one more, I think, piece of soapbox here is that I think about cable television. And we're both of the era where we grew up where this was becoming a thing, but we're of a generation where we don't have it now. So I think about, well, I won't name names, relatives who cable TV became a thing, and they were at a stage in their life where that it was kind of like their internet. It was this thing that just sort of popped up, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's 500 channels now. I can watch all kinds of things. I can watch whatever show I want. I can DVR it and watch it later. And then TV started morphing, where it became a lot less about these scripted shows and about things that were reality television was this huge thing. And it was cheap. It was very easy to watch. It didn't require a lot of mental investment. It was rewarding in this sort of weird, gross sort of way. And so TV morphed to where people went from just kind of watching a couple shows on broadcast television to the TV is just on all the time. And that happened. And for some people, and it's very generational, I think, that was it. That was the trajectory of their life. And they still watch cable TV 24/7. It's on while they sleep, and on, like, people come over to the house and you have to talk over the loud TV of weird TV shows being on. Like, that's an experience you get with some people. So it's a generational thing. It happened, and I don't exactly know why. Obviously there's exceptions, but for some people it's just kind of like, oh yeah, this is kind of my default state now. Now, we grew up at a time where like, cable TV was becoming a thing, but then we were the younger generation. And so you move out, you get an apartment, and you're like, I don't think I'm going to pay for cable TV. I'm going to jump onto this newer thing, which is streaming services. If I want to watch television, I'll just do it there. So you wind up in this totally different environment. And so the cable TV thing is not really a problem for anybody that I know that's roughly my age, but it is a problem for the older generation. And I think just at some point, there's a tendency to get a little bit stuck. And so what I'm saying here is that I think, this is my prediction, that people around our generation, plus or minus however many years, are going to get stuck in the social media thing. In the same way that some people are stuck on Facebook. young people do not use Facebook. That has utterly died for the younger generation. I mean, the fact like having a Facebook would be a joke to somebody who is 16 right now. But the older generation is still there and they aren't moving on. They're going to be swimming in this cesspool for the rest of their lives. The younger generation totally skipped it. Now they're into other stuff, right? But they're not into Facebook. So I think there is going to be a big risk of us getting stuck in some of these things because it just sort of happened at the right time in your life. You just build habits around it, and then that's just it. Like your life doesn't have to change very dramatically from here on out. You're not moving out of your parents' house and rethinking things. So we could just wind up being the generation that is stuck obsessively using phones endlessly. And I think the younger generation may be the ones who sort of look at that. And I think there's already evidence of this, although they obviously use phones a lot too, but in different ways at least. I think there's a world where the younger generation is able to kind of avoid that in the same way that we don't have cable TV running 24/7, but we're going to be the ones on our phone all the time. And the younger generation is going to be the ones that like take a little bit of a step back, observe it, and are able to be a little bit smarter about it. So what I'm trying to say is that don't get stuck. I think there's a gravity here that's really going to pull us towards it, where just like everybody at work that you experience when you talk about this light phone, everybody's going, what the hell are you even talking about? Like they don't even really realize that they're on their phone for 4 hours a day. In the same way that grandma doesn't realize that it's kind of weird to have cable television blasting full volume when there's people over hanging out, or to have it on at night. It's kind of weird, but it's not weird. It's normal, and it's normal for us to be on the phone all the time. So let's just try and have a little bit of a moment of presence and think about that. And
Or just be the one deciding. Do you
yeah,
really want TV on all the time? If the answer is yes, cool. You get to do that. But if the answer is no, and you really wish you were off doing something else, then you should be the one to be able to decide that.
yeah, yeah. All right. Despite ranting about phone usage every episode, we managed to justify an entire episode ranting about phone usage. Any closing thoughts? Any?
I think my average screen time on my normal phone, even as an advanced user, was about 2 hours. I give myself a little credit because usually it was from leaving on some podcast on YouTube in the background while I worked. So I'll just throw that out there as an excuse. But
Sure.
it was around 2 hours. I would say the screen time on this phone is about 5 to 10 minutes.
Right.
And
Because what are you gonna do?
but yeah, you can't do anything. But I know you kind of hated on the idea of it existing and that there should be a better solution. And I agree. I know. I agree that there should be a better solution. I don't think it's this holy grail and whatever. But I think in my current situation of my life, I don't think I could do any better than this. And when after this week has gone by, I feel like me for the first time in a long time,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds a bit maybe wishy-washy isn't the right word, but it sounds naive. But it is true. And I thought that I could never feel like this again. Now I feel like this. And it could be that tomorrow I never feel like it again, but for the last week I could not be happier with the results that I've gotten. Again, I don't care if anyone else gets it. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just saying, for me,
Yeah.
it has worked really, really, really well.
I believe you. I mean, from all the little adventures we've been through on the phone stuff, I never would have thought it, but yeah, I believe you. And I am jealous. I still genuinely don't think I could really make the light phone work, but it makes me more motivated to try and get serious about figuring out something that would work, that is as close to that as I could make it realistically. And I really do appreciate the point you were making about kind of using somewhat contrived or at least very rare scenarios as a justification for something, like putting that as a counterbalance against something that affects you hours every day. Like if you're really weighing
Right.
your happiness and mental freedom against, hey, what about this one random thing that might happen? That's maybe not the most rational thing. So I think that's an excellent point, and I'm gonna try to think that way a little bit harder. Uh, like one example, I keep thinking, man, what if I need a lift? What if I'm stuck somewhere and I gotta call a lift home? Um, like even worst case, if it were okay, well, I have to take the bus and it's gonna take an extra hour. That hour pales in comparison to how many hours I would waste every day doing
Yep.
silly things on the phone. So even just in that basic comparison, it doesn't really make any sense.
Also, I watched a video because I was worried about that, and I still am. I would not want to
But yeah,
have to do this, but you can just call a number and phone order a lift. Like you can just do
interesting.
that.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't even know that.
right.
Yeah, like and taxis still exist. I mean, yeah, you could figure it out, or I could call somebody and say, "Hey, can you please order me a lift? This is where I'm at. This is the cross street," and that could work too. It,
Yeah.
it's some of these scenarios are not as realistic as they seem, but even if they were, if you compare to the costs, I think it's pretty huge. There's something you were saying about like your screen time of 2 hours. I I was watching a Dr. K video, the
Hmm.
healthy gamer guy, and he was talking about implementing this sort of like intermittent fasting approach to tech,
Right.
where he kind of we talked about this a little bit, where he sort of has these hard cutoffs of, at this hour, this is when I can turn the computer on, this is when I can do these technical thing, or technology type stuff, and I have this window, and then it cuts off, and then for the rest of the evening I don't. And he's just describing how much time it felt like he had, and how the people who have tried this along with them had the same, where you think you always feel like you have no time, but then when you check the screen time on your phone, and if you were able to look at also your computer and whatnot, you go, I think actually I do have time because I spend it doing this stuff. If you really eliminated all that stuff, you actually have a lot more time than you think. And so I want to talk more about this soon because this has been interesting for me, but I've kind of been doing a little bit of that with this intermittent fasting approach, or at least I've tried to consolidate these very strict chunks of time where I have this 2 hour block in the morning that I spend working on my own project. And that is, as much as I am able, extremely focused, very regimented. It's at exactly the same time. I use the Pomodoro method, so it's these exact 25-minute intervals. I even have an alarm that goes off when it's supposed to start and when it's supposed to stop, so I kind of know if I'm still lined up. And then, so I do that. It's very strict. And then I do my exercise block, which is anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to kind of accommodate like taking a shower and stuff. But I have my exercise block. I have to be out the door at 10, and I have that's all very regimented and planned out. And then at 12, I have another 2 hour work block, and I spend that on like professional work. And so I really try and protect that time where I'm very, very focused. And then when I'm done, I have sort of a block of time. That's the deep focus windows. And then I have just time where I'm on the clock and I'm doing tasks, but it's not, doesn't need to be that focused. And then I hit the end of the day and I'm done. And so really trying to think that way, where I always get the deep work in, I get the exercise in, I have sort of this miscellaneous time to catch the lighter stuff that doesn't require so much focus. And then there's just a hard stop time where at 5 o'clock, I'm done. And that all gets shut down, and that's it. And as long as I'm not wasting time on the phone, I get to that point in the day where I feel like work is over, because it is, like I've done what I needed to do. And it's like, wow, I have 7 hours until bedtime. What do I really want to do with this 7 hours? And if it doesn't wind up getting filled with, okay, well, I was goofing around during the day, so I got to work a little bit longer, and then, oh, there's one more thing I got to do, and I need to check my email, and blah, blah, blah. Like, if when that goes away, and you really do have this piece of time, and you cut out the distraction stuff, like, man, I'm bored. I don't know what to do here. And I've started playing guitar, and I've started doing other pretty cool things during that time, and it's been pretty fun. And now I know it's different for you because you work a lot and have to drive to and from work. But even so, you get 2 hours back where you aren't doing it, and it feels different.
Well, one weird aspect of this that I didn't know was a thing is that I feel like my days are singular days now, where
Mm.
my brain wakes up in the morning and then it's the same brain that goes to sleep at night, which isn't something
Interesting.
I thought was or wasn't a thing. I didn't think it was a thing at all, but I've experienced this where I, f- I feel like me from the start to the end, and there's not all of these cuts in it. Like it's the same piece of footage. It's not split into a bunch of different parts. And I don't know how else to describe it other than it's just like a singular train of thought from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. It's not that I'm just thinking about one thing, but it's that I'm not being derailed every 5 minutes. See, because if you look at your screen time and you're like, oh my God, I spend 4 hours a day on my phone. That's a lot. Yeah. But it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's way more than that because before you check your phone, you think about checking your phone. And then when you're working on something else and you're trying to focus, you're thinking about checking your phone. And then once you check your phone and you put it back down, you're thinking about what you just saw when you checked your phone. So it's like twice as much as you think it is.
Yep.
It's crazy. So without that, it's just been sort of this, I don't know, beginning to end. I don't know how else to describe it.
I totally get what you mean, but not because I feel like I'm the same person at the start and the end of the day. I feel like I'm a different person at the start and the end of the day. So that's a wonderful idea to me. I would love that.
It reminded me. It is so kind of weird and sad, but like today was a Saturday and I just had like the whole day to work on stuff. And without the phone distracting me, without checking things, whatever, I'm totally disconnected from all of that. It you know how, the first day of winter comes back and you smell the air or whatever and you're like,
Mhm.
"Man, that brings back memories." That's what it was like today, even though it was hot as hell outside because it's Florida and it sucks. But
Right.
with the feeling that I had was, oh my God, I haven't felt like this since like early high school or something. Like this
Yeah.
is a feeling I haven't had since then. So again, that sounds like a naive person cliches
We'll see where you're
talking
at in a
stuff,
month.
but
But
yeah,
yeah.
I think, could be, I don't know, could be just all in my head or something's kind of happening. And if that's the case, then I'm pretty happy with my purchase, I
Well,
guess.
if nothing else, it's a glimpse of heaven, glimpse of paradise.
Right. Before it closes up or you realize it's just a
Yeah.
painting or something. Yeah.
Right. But we'll see. I'm very interested. And again, I'm going to work on trying to figure out some solutions for me that at least get closer to that.
Get rid of your email if you haven't already. That was one that was
Yeah.
surprising. I didn't think,
Hmm.
because no one says they're addicted to email because no one thinks that they're addicted to email. But
Yeah.
it's another one of those things that you refresh and scroll and try to see. I have 3
Yeah.
different email accounts and there's always some trash email coming in, Amazon package delivered or whatever. So I'm constantly checking it. It's just part of the list that I check when I open my phone. And that's just not something that occurred to me, or I didn't realize that until I deleted it. So,
Yeah. We will. Okay, well, our closing thoughts lasted like 20 minutes. So, any more like actual closing thoughts?
I bought a light phone and I like it. Mike thinks you shouldn't buy a light phone and instead buy a I don't know, secret.
Instead, invent
perfect
a new
phone that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the gist of the episode.
Okay. Good enough. Well, maybe we can report back in a couple weeks just to check in and see, one, how the light phone is still being used, and then for me, maybe see if I make any progress on trying to design a better environment somehow for a phone, which again, I think I got something on the desktop. I'm really happy with that. So we'll see where I
Yeah,
get.
you.
Okay. See you
Okay.
people next week. Bye.
Okay, bye.